Tonight, we're going to learn from a presentation that one of our Gen Z members created about how we can reach Gen Z and collaborate with them to build a larger and more diverse movement. This person is not comfortable being on camera, so they've asked me to give the presentation. We'll experience the world from their viewpoint, understand what shaped their worldview, and learn how to target different Gen Z mindsets. And this will include strategies for reaching ex-MAGA protest voters. So from the author, hello everyone. I'm grateful to be contributing today, even from a distance. Thank you for making space. When we talk about engaging Gen Z in our political moments, it's essential to recognize the landscape they've grown up in. What may look like apathy is often exhaustion, disillusionment, or grief. Many aren't disengaged, they're overwhelmed. They're angry. They're trying to survive in a world that feels like it's already burning. They've seen leaders fail them. They've seen climate disaster, gun violence, pandemic mismanagement, economic precarity, and now genocide live streamed on their phones. Gen Z didn't ease into political consciousness. They were thrown into it. Many Gen Zers ask, is anyone going to fight for us? We have to show them the answer is yes, and that we're building alongside them. Many don't see democratic politics as a solution because they've never been shown that the system can respond to their needs. They haven't seen care translate into change or liberal democracy deliver on its promises. And the truth is, in a post trickle down economics, 9/11, Dobbs, October 7th world, that trust has been damaged. So this generation has grown up with active shooter drills, come of age amid overlapping once-in-a-lifetime crises, wars in the Middle East, the 2008 financial collapse, accelerating climate breakdown, the failures of the drug war, and the global trauma of COVID-19. They inherited a media ecosystem with unprecedented exposure to unfiltered global trauma online, creating a constant state of ambient anxiety. Watched institutions glorify profit and slash protections, creating extreme precarity in housing, employment, and healthcare. Witness leaders repeatedly failed to protect people and the planet, and seen AI start to make entire career paths obsolete before they've even entered the workforce. So what do? We have to meet them where they are in digital spaces where they already gather, like TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, and Discord. I know some of those sound like a foreign language to some of you, but these are things that we can all start to get involved in, and especially us as an organization. And I know some of you are group leaders out there as well. These are definitely spaces that we want to start to inhabit. And also at climate protests, mutual aid events, independent bookstores, and college campuses. Don't just wait for them to come to you. Lead with honesty and optimism. We have to be honest about how broken the system is and still show how action can shift power. Be real about where the system has failed. Only then will hope be credible and make space to show where it can be reshaped. And value their cultural fluency. Gen Z occupies a media space where they both create and consume chronically online culture. This makes them more responsive to engagement that speaks their language. Their ability to spot inauthenticity and engage with cultural subtext, think meme culture, is advanced. Leverage this and don't underestimate it. They respond to media that codes integrity and resist anything that smells like brand speaking or spin. They said TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, and Discord. And we can definitely talk about those more later on. So we also need to prioritize horizontal coalition building. Gen Z doesn't want to be reached out to. Sorry about that. Gen Z doesn't want to be recruited. They want to collaborate. The ask isn't how do we get Gen Z to care about our agenda? It's how do we create one that actually acknowledges their needs? For much of Gen Z values like gender inclusivity and indigenous sovereignty and are not radical. Their baseline. What remains profoundly unstable and the source of far more existential angst is the prospect of economic mobility, material security, and a livable future. Speak in values, not parties. Frame your messaging around dignity, justice, safety, and shared humanity. We stand for human rights and accountability across the board. Language like this resonates more than traditional partisan lines. A prime example of this is Gen Z tends to associate the terms liberalism and Democrat with centrism and corporate complicity. They prefer the term leftist, since liberalism is largely viewed as performative, aligned with corporate power, and unwilling to meaningfully restrain forces like Wall Street. System worry, they focus on interconnected struggles, mutual aid, decolonization, and economic justice as strategic responses to broken systems. And we need to offer tangible, bite-sized action. Gen Z is navigating chronic overstimulation and algorithm fatigue. Giving them clear activism actions can help restore some sense of efficacy. Small wins create momentum and can rebuild confidence in representatively democratic systems. So, bite sized action examples are coordinated postcard writing. An example of this would be on such and such a day, send postcards condemning ICE's connection to the private prison operator Geo Group, which has a processing center located in Aurora. Send them to 9 News Denver, addressed to Kyle Clark. Raise visibility and push for media scrutiny of private prison contracts in Colorado. You can also text resist to resist bot, which is the number 50409. It will give you topics such as transition related healthcare. Sample intro message to contact your representatives would be, as a constituent, I'm asking you to vote no on any bill that defunds transition related healthcare for trans Americans on Medicaid. Trans people across the country suffer severe economic barriers, making them more likely to rely on federally funded healthcare coverage. You can also do a coordinated social media blitz. This is something that we did actually quite a while ago. An example is at 6 p.m. on Wednesday at the start of this call, we're all posting to one of our social accounts a specific infographic that maybe one of us has created, countering false claims about a specific issue. And then you would share, repost, and tag your reps. And this helps counter disinformation on social media, and it also can build group action within your group into the media rhythms. We've done this before, calling your senators with a specific script all at once. The reason we don't do it in our meeting anymore is that it's after hours here. And the big intention with calling all at the same time is to light up the switchboard. And so that's something that we may start organizing on a different level. But another thing that we need to do is tailoring to different Gen Z mindsets. Number one is nihilists or disengaged non-voters. Many are apathetic to systems that have only overpromised and underdelivered. Highlighting mutual aid and community projects as a model for building new systems can provide hope and a path forward. Furthermore, data shows that when registered young voters are when they're registered, young voters are much more likely to vote. After years of outsourcing, the DNC is investing in registration initiatives, and we can engage with this. We want to show that voting is still a vital tool among many. There are protest voters who withheld their vote or voted for a third party, most often in protest of the war on Gaza. These young people are already engaged, but their idealism, while powerful, can sometimes strain the coalitional nature of a democratic system. They see Gaza not as fringe, but as central, deeply connected to anti-racism, climate justice, demilitarization, economics, and the very question of what kind of world they're trying to build. If we treat it as an inconvenient debate, such as was done during the last general election, we'll lose them. They're not interested in being given party-approved scripts that ignore the grief and rage they're holding. It's important to both acknowledge that the Democratic Party isn't always aligned with justice and to make the case for why civic activism within the system matters too. We have to show that grief and electoral strategy are not mutually exclusive, that fighting for Gaza includes down ballot races, local actions, and coalition building that shapes future foreign policy. Then we have the radicalized far right. Some have been drawn toward far right ideologies, often out of disillusionment or economic despair. Reactionary voices offer them false clarity. Our role is to offer a better invitation, to validate the disillusion while modeling a path forward. So there is a recommended video on YouTube, which I will send you the link to in the email tomorrow with Pete Buttigieg that I watched the very beginning of, and it looks like a really great tool. So coalition building with the ex-MAGA Gen Zers. The Gen Z mindsets outlined before all trace back to a common root, deep, widespread distrust in institutions. That distrust is important to understand because it also underpins much of the MAGA base. Right now, overreaching immigration policies, Trump's bombing of Iran, and growing alignment with Israel's agenda are putting pressure on the perceived unity of the MAGA movement, and signs of splintering are emerging. The Trump-Musk alliance remains shaky at best after their very public fallout, and now they are back at it. Ted Cruz and Ben Shapiro endorsed military escalation. Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tucker Carlson opposed it. Joe Rogan is openly questioning ISIS tactics, and Theo Vaughn is pushing back on both the war in Gaza and Trump's actions in Iran. If U.S. ground troops are deployed, fractures may deepen. While that looks unlikely right now, we don't know what's going to happen in the near or distant future. In the meantime, there will likely be some realignment as the base gets its narrative marching orders, but at this moment is still a strategic opening. We can begin messaging around the idea that Trump was never truly anti-war, that he was always aligned with neocon interests. This opens a door for some libertarian-leaning or disillusioned voters who once saw him as a no-war president against AIPAC and the deep state to consider a progressive shift. And then we have coalition building with protest voters. After seeing little to no response from the Biden administration to protest against Israel's war on Gaza, many Gen Z voters were left feeling the system is too entrenched and too embedded with AIPAC and other lobbying groups to meaningfully change. To re-engage them in protests, voting, and activism, we need to clearly illustrate how political shifts can happen and how change, while nonlinear, builds over time through sustained pressure and participation. Without ranked choice voting, third parties can't win at scale. The viable path to organize primary and elect, or the viable path is to organize primary and elect progressive Democrats. Kat Abu Ghazalia, a Palestinian American congressional candidate, exemplifies this inside-out strategy and represents the bold leadership that Gen Z is demanding. I think we're going to see a lot of candidates primaried this year and next year, and I, for one, am looking forward to it. After Trump bombed Iran, she condemned both Trump and the Democratic leadership. She said, if Jeffrey, Schumer, or any elected Democrats justify this or shrug it off, they need to step down. We need Democrats with a real vision. This is the energy that can bring protest voters back into the fold. Her stance allows us to see how we can call for institutional change through accountability and not disengagement. How do we change the party from within? I know we've talked about Run for Something is a great resource, and I'll put that link in the email tomorrow as well. Consolidation means uplifting progressive and democratic candidates in every race, from local offices to the Oval Office, who challenge APAC, war profiteering, and lobbyist power. Representative Summer Lee, for example, won in a blowout despite facing massive APAC attacks. And Kat Abu Ghazalia, mentioned before, champions LGBTQ rights, climate action, AI regulation, economic justice, and is a bold voice against Trump and Democratic complacency. Expanding coalition spaces like the No Kings Activism Fair, where Free Palestine tents stood beside indivisible tents, that's the future. It reflects how core justice issues, from Palestine to reproductive rights to climate justice to economic reform, can coexist without competition, rooted in shared opposition to authoritarianism. Fostering class consciousness as foundational, rooted in America's labor history and long tradition of democratic struggle. It's central to the future we're building within a just, inclusive framework, alongside a new generation of authentic democratic leftist leaders. Fighting for legislative frameworks that protect labor, privacy, and human legacy in an AI driven economy. Embedding AI policy and worker protections focuses into our political messaging isn't just optional, it's urgent. And there are some examples that I'll send out tomorrow of things like that we can create, like education reels for social media. You could say, here's what calling Congress sounds like, and give people a sample of a script. You can even pull that from an app like Five Calls. We could do a video like how to protest safely in a recipe tutorial format with music, subtitles, and close-up hand shots. We can say something like take one phone with location and biometrics off, one buddy, one sign or flag. Mix well with knowing your rights, legal info written on your arm, and peaceful conduct, and serve hot to your nearest authoritarian regime. And you could also highlight progressive Democrats with a title like These Dems Are the Real Ones. Using visual clips of the highlighted Democrats speaking at hearings, receipts with headlines, and their voting records versus establishment Democrats. And then there is a weekly meme drop. So I would definitely encourage all of you to start, check out this Substack, The Status Quo. I'll put that link in the chat once we're done with the presentation here. This compiles the best memes of the week, mocking fascists, billionaire tech bros, and the alt-right. The series is titled Just for Skeets and Giggles. It drops every Saturday. So I'll put the link where you can find his latest compilations, and definitely I would download or take a screenshot of those, post them on your social media. They're perfect for including newsletters as well. And then look for local events like poetry reading, things like that, where you can call the event organizer and ask them if you can set up a table with pamphlets, just to do some low-key promotion of your group and what we're all doing to challenge authoritarianism. So in closing, what Gen Z deserves is a movement that matches their courage, channels their grief, and honors their vision. They don't need to be saved; they need to be seen, and they need to know that they're not doing it alone. So thank you very much, and we can open it up to questions or comments. Just go ahead and raise your hand. Morgan?
One of the things I wanted to point out, several of us are in my generation, possibly a little bit older. The world that Gen Z has grown up in is completely different from what we knew and what we grew up with. Government has never functioned for them. things that are institutions that you're supposed to do this, they've done and it hasn't worked for them. They haven't had big political wins like the civil rights movement. They haven't defeated the Cold War. They haven't seen what success looks like. And they don't see much difference between the Democrats and the Republicans because ever since Clinton embraced the third way and has been in business with large corporations to make enough money to fight the money imbalance against the Republicans, there isn't a lot of difference in their mind from what comes before and what's happening now. In addition to that, in my age, people would watch the evening news, you would get letters in the mail and you would read them, you would get a phone call, and those things could all be persuasive. Gen Z doesn't see any of that, and they don't see anything that they can do that will make a difference. In addition to that, when I was growing up, it was possible to graduate from high school, get a union job, or not necessarily need a college education and be able to get a job that's good. These days, now you can get a college education, still not wind up with a job that's good, and $100,000 or $200,000 in student debt that is not going to be forgiven anytime soon. So the world that they're coming into is very, very different than the world that I grew up in, and we need to meet them where they are if we're going to expect them to join us. And we need to say that it's not enough for the Democrats to be running candidates against Republicans. One of the biggest criticisms I still have of the Democratic Party to this point is that they are not engaging in the resistance. They are not stepping up to meet the moment, and they are acting like this is just another election cycle, and we're just going to get our people together and go. And, they're the ones who should be putting on the good trouble protests. And they're the ones who should be pushing to the left. They're the ones who should be having, long filibusters and preventing as much as they can of this from going through. I can't blame Gen Z for being a little disillusioned when you look up and you say, they're not doing what they need to do. And that's the important part to understand, that it's a different world now and they grew up in a different place. I didn't have, you know, active shooter drills when I was in school. I had, nuclear bomb drills. And it's that different a world in how we need to approach this. So that's all I've got to say. So go ahead, Katie.
Um, Hi. Well, first I wanted to thank Tiffany for being willing to read the presenter's presentation and being accommodating that they didn't want to be on screen themselves. Um, and also just emphasizing that just listening to where they're coming from, because uh, in the chat, and also I think probably in our own heads, and I speak for myself, I could be like, I just want to respond to the pop-up that comes up, or this point that's being talked about, instead of, hang on, I need to sit and just think about what's being said here. So there's that. But I think um I work with Gen Zers. I'm just a generation ahead of them. I'm a millennial. Um so yeah, they have been through a lot. They have been through a lot of collective trauma. And I think they see the power structures that are complicit in causing a lot of their pain, and um, our pain, and they're just not going to stand for it. I think for me, just my focus is getting to know my coworkers. Everyone's different. They're not a monolith, but just getting to know them is the first step, and just listening to them. Um, I guess I'd really emphasize that. So I appreciate this talk. This is a start of that.
We want to make that connection, and it's very important. And just to follow that up, in the world I grew up in, tech didn't exist. And then all of a sudden, tech was this big industry. And then all of a sudden, people realized they need to pay their tech people well. And those were good jobs, even though they weren't union. Well, now, like so many other companies, tech is going away. It is being automated, and those jobs are being lost. And even the jobs that were highly skilled, required large amounts of education, training, experience, and knowledge are being replaced by AI and computer programs. And that's been happening for years and years and years and years. There have been huge productivity gains for decades. But what they've done is push people out of good paying jobs. So now those people don't have a job, and the productivity gains isn't going into wage increases for the workers. It's going into shareholder and company executives. And that all plays into it because that then leaves them with no place to go. So I think Darlene was next, and Kathy, I think that means your hand is raised, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's do Darlene first and then Kathy.
Okay.
Darlene,
Eileen, go ahead. You might be muted. Oh, there you go.
it says you're unmuted, but we can't hear you.
Yeah. No, we're not able to hear you. Okay.
If you want to type something in the chat, we can pass it along. So in the meantime, why don't you go ahead, Kathy?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm a baby boomer, so I'm a lot older than most of you. Okay. I agree with most of the presentation. It is correct that the Zan generation has had to deal with a lot of different, situations. But because I grew up in the 60s, there was a lot of turmoil in those days as well. I have always felt for all of my, development going down the road that it's never been easy. Never. In the 80s, we had a lot of economics. I mean, I we struggled to be able to get a house. I think the bigger difference now, is that the possibilities of having a home are almost impossible. I mean, with, at least before there was, financial ways to be able to get around stuff. But I mean, the politics between Democrats and Republicans both have been very, I don't know, nonchalant. And really, I have felt for a long time that people need to go to the streets because nothing seems to be changing. And I'm 71 years old. So I've lived through a lot of different political, flip-flops, but really nothing has ever really changed as far as like medical care, you know, being I don't know. I don't even economics has always been difficult. I a single head of household, barely struggling. But my life, I grew up that way. My family was always struggling. So it's always seemed like, these struggles are not new. They're different.
I think the important thing to remember here is my generation is the first one that wasn't better off than their parents. And that has increased generation after generation, now 3 generations later. And the structural political headwinds that people were facing that was more common in minority communities than majority communities has now spread to encompass most of the generation that we're talking about. And the fact that you can't find a house in, wherever you live to buy on one income is
Yeah.
a fundamental change that structurally makes it harder for this generation than it was for past generations. It's not that it was easy when we were younger. It's not that other generations had it easier or simpler. Everybody works. Everybody works as hard as they can. But now the opportunities simply don't exist or don't exist the way they did before. And that's the problem. If the opportunities were there, Gen Z would be able to engage and do it. But the way they exist now is completely different. And we need to treat it completely different. All right, go ahead, Darlene.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, great. So I guess I want to say thank you for this presentation and this topic discussion, because I think it's really vital moving forward that we're going to all have to work together across generations.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we can't just pick at the younger generation. Somebody else said it, they're not a monolith, right? There are some of the Gen Z generation that just tune out of life because everything seems so difficult with all the things they're bombarded with, and they're playing video games. But there are many other Gen Zers who are activists in their communities. Now, they embrace different ideas than, and I'm just going to say, like mainstream Democrats. They don't see that the Democrats have worked for them in a whole. And so they want something different. And I think we have to figure out a way how to bridge this divide. It is really going to be vital for all of us working together and not working against each other. They win when we're divided. I will tell you, the Gen Z activists that I work with, and they are focused at having a better society. And they are willing, I think, to push some barriers that hasn't been pushed before. And I think we need to be open to figuring out how we work together. So thank you for bringing this topic to us today.
You, Darlene. Alana, did I pronounce your name right?
You did pronounce it correctly. Yes, thank you. So I am a millennial. It looks like I might be one of the younger people here, but I do think that it is so important to like acknowledge that younger generation, because even millennials, like as adults, we have a lot of concerns about, well, what is my degree going to get me? And in my own friend groups around this age group, like we all panic. And so I know that that younger generation is also like in a spot where we talk about climate change and the world is ending in a few years. So all of these various things. And I think it's hard to get them to feel hope for a lot of things. Like even millennials, while we struggled, we got to grow up and were like voting during the time that Obama was president. And that was exciting because it was like, oh, maybe some positive things are going to come from this. But I think what has happened over the last few years as Gen Z has come into adulthood is they've kind of just been stepped on. It doesn't feel like they get listened to. And then I think what that does is it does create some of the younger generation who wants to be more on the far right because at least the far right makes them feel listened to or makes them feel like they have an important place to be, which is its own crazy thing in itself. But I think it's creating a space where they feel like they're listened to and creating a space where they feel like we can actually do things and create some change that's going to make something happen for their future. Because I feel like a lot of them look at a lot of the things that are going on and they don't feel like there's any promise in this. And it doesn't feel like we gain traction. And that's really all I wanted to say. Like, I think a big root that we are missing is we have to figure out how to make them care and how to say, like, we can't promise that everything is going to get better, but we can definitely make an effort in the right direction. And we are listening to you guys since we are ultimately like we're handing this country, we're handing the planet, everything is getting handed down to them. And I think that when we're only fighting for things that don't necessarily apply to them, it goes over their head and they lose the heart that a lot of us have in caring about this. And that's kind of all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Love to,
I definitely love your perspective. And even more like I love how you said they need to feel listened to. So we're the ones that need to start listening. We need to stop comparing our struggles to their struggles because they are different, and in most cases they are worse than what most of us went through. Alana, I think you're probably closer to their generation than I am. I'm an elder millennial.
I'm a
Um,
young millennial, so I
yeah.
still grew up with active shooter drills and all of that. And so I remember that as a core part of being in school in Colorado, but it was because of Columbine. I don't think that that was a nationwide concern, even when I was in school. So,
Yeah. I'm guessing that it is definitely nationwide now. But yeah, it started early in Colorado. But yeah, I think rather than saying like my life was so hard and I'm sure their lives are hard too, but everyone's life is hard. That doesn't help connect with them. So I think the important thing is that they don't want to be like the presentation said, they don't want to be saved. They want people to work alongside them. I think it was Darlene said that she works with Gen Z organizers, and they are extremely passionate about and extremely driven about the things that they care about. And I think it's connecting that type of work to something in electoral politics. And I think the way that that's going to happen is younger candidates, more progressive candidates challenging the old school Democrats that are beholden to their corporate donors. There are people that are running races without big corporate donors, without PAC and SPAC donations, that are fundraising mainly from grassroots donors, which is $5 from one person here, $100 from one person there. And I think those are the type of candidates that a lot of people in Gen Z will hopefully be able to get behind. I hope Mom Donnie's win is translating and getting out there on social media and reaching that generation because I think that is a powerful step in the right direction. Morgan, did you want to say something?
yeah, I wanted to follow it up by saying, part of the reason Barack Obama connected with younger people was he offered hope. That was what he was running on. And that really connected with people. And that's how he was able to get elected as the first African American president. And a lot of what Gen Z and young people now look up at And they don't see that hope. There is no path for them to work hard and succeed anymore. And, I think if you can give that to people and give them opportunity, I have seen young people step up and work hard and succeed. But, to be blunt about it, if you hand them a bucket of shit, they're going to act like you handed them a bucket of shit. And if you look at the world around them, look at what they're growing up into, and where is the opportunity? The opportunity is shrinking for more and more people. And that's what we need to acknowledge in the way that we approach them. And if we can give that opportunity, if we can say, be an advocate for the working class and make it easier for people to do it, that's where we need to go. Go ahead, Kat.
Hey, so I work with I'm very familiar with like Gen Z online communities. I work with some who are active politically, and like I volunteered on Obama's first campaign because I really believed in what he had to say, and then he became the president with a record of the most drone strikes. Who didn't speak up when Palestine was civilians were being bombed, and I didn't participate in the next election, his second term. So like I'm a later millennial, I'm not Gen Z, but like that from the beginning, we've been disillusioned by the system on both sides of the aisle. And so like that, the starting position for a lot of people, especially the younger ones who are politically active, is that not that, oh, we need to use all these methods that the civil rights movement used, and we need to pursue our legal avenues to get change. Like we watched the federal courts all get stacked with pro-Trump judges over the last, his last term. We watched the Supreme Court get like at this point, we all believe the system is rigged. And so, yeah, we are often considered on the more radical side of things, but like there's a reason for that. It's because the system has never served us. And all of us have Palestinian friends or trans friends or immigrant friends who we've watched be persecuted by the system that's supposed to protect us. So you have to understand, like, people like me who come to your groups, like I'm not here necessarily to really participate in like exactly your guys' mission or the Democratic Party's mission. I'm here because I think you guys are going to have to get converted to our side, not us get converted to your organization. That like we all have to be ready to make major changes to the system for this to get better and not happen again, because it's the closest to fascism America's ever gotten, and it's terrifying us. So that's our starting place.
Thank you so much, Kat. It's good to see you.
Well said.
Passion, go ahead. Passion, you're muted.
Well, thanks. Did y'all talk about the homeland concept earlier? I'm sorry, I wasn't here at the beginning.
I'm not sure what you mean by that.
So Gen Z's other nickname is called Homeland Generation. I just posted that in the chat. There's various sources that have titled them that. And I think that there's a good reason why they're called the Homeland Generation, because not only are they dealing with the brunt of climate change, but they're also dealing with the planetary, like, built-in obsolescence. I can run away to my scary Elysium in the sky, or to my hidey holes, while all these people on the surface of the planet are begging for my help type of gist I'm personally afraid of for my child and my future generations. I don't know if y'all have ever seen the movie Elysium, based on a book with Matt Damon and Jodie Foster. But that is a really good reference that if y'all haven't seen it yet, I would totally check out, because I think that's where we're headed, as for sci-fi. But and I hope my kid ends up being the guy that helps him jump citizenship and illegally get into the rich people's airspace. But anyways, yeah, so if I guess the discussion about Homeland would be really interesting, since people who are native are being arrested again And it seems like what is this home needs to be better defined because even people in houses feel homeless, if you get what I mean, because even I feel homeless sometimes.
Thank you. Thank you for your perspective. It's important.
I
Jackie, go. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Morgan.
I think it's a good perspective, and no, I think the underlying theme of we need to look at this differently from the way we would look at trying to get ourselves engaged. I find myself saying, all right, if this was me and somebody wanted to engage me, what would it take to get me involved? But what it would take to get me involved is not what it would take to get my kids involved. And I think we need to start acting like that and, going to where they are and see where they're coming from, as opposed to just saying, well, this is what works, this is what we've always done, and it's going to work in this case too. Clearly, it's not. Go ahead, Jackie.
I just have a couple of quick practical tips. You said something about setting up a table at a poetry reading, maybe. Um, so I went one step further and I'm organizing locally a protest poetry slam.
Cool.
That sounds like fun.
So we can
Yeah.
set up our own. That's the theme for the night. If you look for places that have open mic nights and also host drag queens, they're a pretty good bet that they're going to be on your side with it. The other thing that we're doing to try and reach out locally is we're talking to local student activist groups. We're asking them what kind of events they want to see instead of just inviting them to come protest at ours. So they can tell me what kind of protests and what kind of actions they want. I'm an old lady. I have zero credibility in a lot of their spaces. But what I can do is the administrative work and post it on Mobilize and get together a safety team for them and help them with putting up the flyers and getting word out to people that are on my mailing list. Like I can be the background support for them and let them choose and run the event and kind of enable them to be heard. So,
Thank you. Yeah, I think
yeah,
that's a really awesome idea.
if you just step up and, yeah, reach out harder, farther, first.
Yeah. I know in the presentation, our friend mentioned mutual aid projects. That's something that is a really great idea. It's a way for us to develop connectedness with our community and build communities that are able to support each other when the government's withdrawing that support.
100%.
Oh, and before we lose too many people, I know a lot of people have to drop off at 7. We need a volunteer coordinator if anybody is up for that volunteer position. So if you are, please email me. I'll put my email in the chat again. And that way we can get on top of contacting all of you who have volunteered to volunteer. All right, Celeste, go ahead. Oh, you're muted.
Well, sorry. I just wanted to comment, that I think things have changed dramatically. Our problems, the problems of my generation, I'm 71, are not the same as they are today. Bernie Sanders has pointed out that the wealth is being concentrated in the hands of fewer and fewer people. And when I was young, you could go into a factory at 19 and literally retire at 55 with 2 homes, a cottage up north and a home and everything paid for, have 2 cars. And that's just a dream. I mean, I paid cash for my undergraduate and graduate degree. And now I don't even think you can do that, even working full time. And this generation really needs to catch a break. I mean, they have had one thing slammed at them after another. And I think they do need hope. And I think they do need for us to help them create opportunity. We don't want to save them, just create a chance for them to get ahead, to get a home, to be able to have kids if they want to, and, you know, to just have a decent lifestyle. I know my son at 46, he, you know, doesn't think that my generation appreciates all we have. We had pensions. We didn't even have to save for retirement. And this next generation is wondering whether Social Security is even going to be there for them. So, yes, I think we have to be proactive in helping this next generation because they are just, they've got a tough road to hoe. And that's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Celeste. I think the start of that is to find ways to show them that there is hope. So that's something that we can all work on.
Right.
Would anyone else like to add anything or have any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Sorry, I was looking for how to raise my hand, but I didn't really see why or how. So one thing I think would be really helpful is having just things posted like on street corners or, you know, I've seen like the Ukraine supporters having like a demonstration where they're over I-25 on a bridge, and I don't even know when they're going to be there. Every so often they are, but I keep thinking like, how do people know when a protest is coming or some kind of action? And granted, I live in Centennial, but I work in downtown Denver. It seems like different times I've thought, oh, I would love to just post a flyer that says, hey, no King's Day is coming. And then I'm like, well, what's legal? And, you know, what flyer should I post? And I mean, there's just nothing visual. I feel like I'm living in this, you know, alternate universe where everything that's happening in DC and everywhere else, you just don't hear about unless you really go out of your way to find out about it. So anyway, that's kind of just wondering what to do about it. And, you know, if that's something that's being considered.
It is
You,
something considered. That is exactly why we started with stickers, so that people could go out and sticker telephone poles and, you know, their entire world and know that there is a movement started. But when it comes to the type of communication about when and where something's happening, it is a personal pet peeve of mine that it's not easy for people to find. And the communication channels, because we live in such a connected society, one group picks Slack, group picks Discord, group puts it up on their website, and there's no unified group that information comes out of, so that you can't just sign up to one email list and expect to know what's going on anymore. It shouldn't be like that. It should be easy to get this information and everybody should be able to know. The hard part is getting all of the groups to agree on one form of communication, putting everything in the same calendar, putting calendar events up for things that they're doing so that everybody knows. And most importantly, you know, doing something like the mobilize links that Indivisible has makes it so much easier to get to people, get connected with them, and have other things suggested to you. There isn't just something else that exists like that. And that's where that difficulty comes in. And it really is a communications issue, and it is a force of will issue, and it drives me crazy. What I would suggest is, particularly if you're interested in the big things that are happening, the protests, the marches, the you know, speeches, things like that, go back and look at the groups that organize them. The Indivisibles, the 50/51s, the groups like ours that are involved in it, because we'll tell you at our meeting that something is coming up, and then we'll send it in email afterwards. That doesn't go to everybody, but it does go to everybody who signs up. And like the mile-long table event, we like to shout out other people's events so that people can go to them. But I don't have a lot of advice to tell you how to find out what each of these groups are doing, other than get on their lists individually, and then you wind up like me with 11,000 emails in your email box.
You can either go the email route or you can follow them on social media. Follow groups like Indivisible. They'll announce all of the big protests. Try to find your local Indivisible chapter and follow them on social media. I'll actually find the link for you to locate your local Indivisible chapter.
Wait, well,
And
my question wasn't about how do I find out? I'm talking about how do you get a bunch of people to know about it, that something's coming up? Because I've joined Indivisible in my area in Denver. I get a lot of emails, but it just seems like people who are feeling, you know, upset about what's happening, but they don't really know what to do.
Sure. And I think posting flyers is a great idea. It's legal in almost any location. And so you can post them on phone poles. And those are the type of flyers that you can get more on social media than by email most of the time. But sometimes they do go out by email. I'll be sending out the flyers for the Denver Note or Good Trouble Lives On Day tomorrow, and you can print them out. Put them up wherever you'd like, wherever you can. One of the sessions that we're actually going to do, probably not next week, because we'll be at the Indivisible 1 Million Rising training, but the week after that. I think we're going to cover how to connect with college students, or how to activate college students. And one of the ways to do that is going to be posting flyers on campus. We'll have stickers that you can leave out that have a QR code that go to our Slack, where people can join and be with a bunch of other activists. I'll drop that link in the chat again here. But flyers on phone poles are an awesome idea. Unfortunately, we usually can't find enough volunteers willing to pick up the flyers and go post them. So if you're one of those people, be amazing and get it done.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. We did actually send people out to flyer for the No Kings Day rally, and like Tiffany said, there are far fewer people to flyer, and the impact of flyering is much lower when you can go out with a stack of 500 flyers, or you can send out 10,000 emails, or put one post up on TikTok and have it seen by millions. And, it is something that we're still doing in the same way that politicians still send out mailers. It's just not impacting the same way that it did before. But your question as to how and why is it not easy to get this information is absolutely valid. And I'm not going to try and come up with a good reason, because I don't have a good reason for why it's so hard, because we're willing to do it. We're willing to do the work to make it easy to find stuff. We'll put it in the chat, and then we'll put it in the email, and then we'll put it in the email before the next one if we have to. And, just there's a limit to what we can do when it comes to the entire move. So, all right, go ahead, Celeste.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put my hand up.
That's all right. Do you have something to say?
No.
All right.
Happy to be here, that's all.
you're welcome. We're glad to have you. So if you want to say something, let us know. Otherwise, go ahead.
Thank you.
Cynthia,
Celeste, did you get to speak, or Cynthia? Yeah, Cynthia, go ahead. You might be muted. Cynthia, we can't hear you, so I'm gonna pass it to Darlene for now. Oh, we can't hear you again, Darlene. No, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me,
Mm-mm.
Tiffany?
We can hear you now, Cynthia. You're unmuted.
Oh, good. I was having a terrible time trying to get it unmuted. I'm sorry. There are two things that I wanted to mention that I am a member of the baby boomers generation. And I was sitting here thinking as everybody was talking, the Gen Z talking about how what has government done for them? What has anybody done for them? They're kind of left standing here trying to find their way and angry at government because they're not getting anywhere. But I was thinking about what happened for us that was different. And I realized, we we had things that we were passionate about, but we also saw success in that, like the Voting Rights Act. We saw the Berlin Wall come down, the Vietnam War that we protested, and finally, it was over. And the fact that there was a draft that was going on at that time, there was so much camaraderie among people because your friends were going and dying. And so there was more, connection there. And then finally, when that draft ended, thank God, we saw the beginning of environmental change when we started talking about cleaning up pollution and the skies started clearing over Denver and over LA and over the big cities that I remember when the sky used to be gray over Denver. We had the end of segregation, we had Civil Rights Act, we had the Voting Rights Act, we had Wounded Knee occurred in the 70s. There were so many things that occurred, but we felt successes. And with each success that we had, we gained more energy and more momentum. And it feels like now there aren't successes. And so it's hard when you're fighting all the time. It's like, why keep fighting? Nothing is happening. But then I also remembered Woodstock, and generations connect across music. And I've been having an idea about maybe having a music festival here to get people together and talking and doing, the singer-songwriter protest songs going from the 70s on forward, and kind of gaining some passion and some energy that way, because generations do connect across music, whether it's college campuses or us old 60s hippies. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think that's an awesome idea. If that's something that you have the time and are willing to put some time and effort into, I would be willing to, Solidarity Warriors can put some resources behind that financially. And I'd be, willing to put the tiny bit of time that I can find at 3 a.m. To help organize something like that. So if you would shoot me an email, I would love to work on that with you.
What was the other group earlier that somebody was talking about?
The Flowbot.
As much as I'm sorry, as much as I would love to do that, I'm in Virginia, Tiffany.
Oh, okay.
So, but there are a lot of connections here to Dave Matthews Band and some of the other groups that have come out of this area that may be able to. I can try. I've got friends that know people that maybe we could get something going. I don't know what, but I'm just thinking we connect across music. So.
Woodstock upstate New York. It doesn't need to be in Denver. It can be anywhere in the country.
True, true.
And I think, putting up a festival like this would be very easy to get fans who are concerned to sign up, even for
Mm-hmm.
free, or if we fly them out, for far less it would take to get them to fill a stadium.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of potential here. One of the more interesting things I had is during the Black Lives Matter movement, that long ago, I was complaining that there weren't really any good new protest songs coming out. And then I was informed that they're all in hip hop, and that's not someplace where I'm at. And then all
Well,
of a sudden it made sense.
On TikTok, somebody
TikTok,
actually
that's
sent me
it.
a
There,
bunch. Yep.
yeah, I did, Tiffany.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, there are tons of them, and there are such good artists there. I love it. And I hear we're losing TikTok by September, so grab them quickly.
We've been losing TikTok for a long time. I think Trump isn't going to let it go because then people would be mad at him. Not that he gives a shit about that, but I think he's going to try to keep it around.
I think No Enemies was the group you were trying to remember. I forget the co-host's name.
Morgan.
It was somebody here who was looking at starting their own group to do something. And I've completely forgotten. I'll try and remember it. But
yeah, No Enemies. Jeanette just sent me information for them, so I will get in touch with them. Lisa, go ahead. Lisa, you're muted.
Okay. I just wanted to say I'm in California, but I attend your meetings because I really appreciate the energy that you guys put into this and the information that you bring to everybody. And I just wanted to comment on about publicizing. It's something that I think about a lot because every protest I've been to, I invariably meet people who have no clue how to hook up and how to connect. And so I run down the list. Indivisible, mobilize, 50-51, swing left. But I think it would be really helpful when we do overpasses or when we do protests to have banners that list solidarity warriors, that list who we are. We are indivisible. We are swing left. We are solidarity warriors. Join us. Simple message, but to let people know that there is a place, indivisible.org, whatever, that they can find us and find a place to put themselves.
Thank you. Yes, so we actually handed off one of our big banners to one of the, I think it was 50-51 group that's doing overpass, hanging banners off overpasses. And I'll show you what our banners look like. They say resist, and they have our website on them. Give me 1 second and I'll put it in the chat. Oh. And this is something, if you guys want to, you can get them in our store online on our website. And I'll send you a link to that. But those are something that you can hang, or if you have your own idea for a banner, send me an email and I can get them made pretty reasonably priced. So just let me know. Was there anyone else that couldn't figure out how to raise their hand on Zoom that would like to speak?
I still haven't found it. That's
Okay.
all I'm going to say.
For next time, it should be down at the bottom of your screen on Zoom. Are you on a phone or a computer? Oh, you're muted, Beth.
Oh, I'm on my phone, but I'm using the browser instead of the app at the moment.
Okay. So it might be a little tricky that way. But if you don't see it down at the bottom of the window, you might click on the More button, and then
Yep.
you might see raise hand there or reactions, and it could be under there.
Okay. Thanks.
You're welcome. Well, I definitely saw some great discussions in the chat. I saw some back and forth about Israel and Palestine, and I know that these are issues that we are all passionate about. And I know that we all have empathy for people on both sides. I want to make sure that everyone feels welcome here. And that your opinions are valued. And like I said before the presentation, just in case some of you weren't here at that point, I know that the presentation was very pro-Palestinian. It mentioned October 7th, but obviously didn't go into detail. But both of those things were evils that were visited upon innocent people, and we don't support either of the groups that are doing these things. I want people to know that I would say 98% of the pro-Palestine protests are not anti-Jew or anti-Israel. They are anti what Israel as a government is doing. They're anti what Netanyahu is doing, but they're not anti the people of Israel. Jeanette, go ahead.
Hey, thanks. I didn't want to say this earlier because the conversation was good around the presentation, but I did have a question. John Hickenlooper was on a meeting today about methylprednisolone and the attempts by the Trump administration now to really try to get that banned from mailing anywhere. But part of that conversation came back to something I'm hearing constantly, and that is we need 4 votes in the Senate by GOP people, and we can't get them on anything that's coming up. So I'm wondering whether, at least as a consideration for future action, that we really think about targeting people directly for campaigns that say, we need you to change your vote, and to try to really peel off 4 people. We know Collins and a couple of others, Tillis, voted against this last ugly bill, but we didn't get 4, and we lost by 1 vote. And that's, and Hickenlooper's response was, if we can't peel off 4 people, even the most moderate, even the people who we know agree with us, but they won't come against the power and money and threats that they're getting, we're going to have to wait till another election to get anywhere. And then we're going to have to try to peel all this back again that's happening. So that's just a question mark for you guys as we go forward, as in terms of a question mark about strategy, that we need to try to get to some of these people that we know are on the fence, and they're getting so much pressure from just one side that they, even if they don't agree with it, they need 4 of them to be able to say to each other, if I stand up, I don't want to be the only one. So I don't know how we do that, but that's a question.
Someone, I don't remember her name, but she had an excellent idea, which is to start protesting in front of the businesses that are donating to these Republican senators. It's possible that is how we flipped one of the votes, one of the Republicans on the last bill. So I'm going to pull up that link, and I'll put that in the chat, and I will include it in the email again tomorrow.
Well, that I am going to say, this really touches a couple of things that we've hit on. The first is, when we started out, we were teaching people what to do in red states as well as blue states. And one of the things we said, even if you're blue in a red state, go ahead and call your congressperson, go ahead and call your senator, even take a step forward and primary against them. And we talked about how to do that. And if people are interested in it, we will be happy to support them and get them started on their way, because that can make a lot of difference. Because if you're in a safely Republican district, you don't care about the Democrat who's running against you if you've got a 60-40 or 70-30 split. You're going to win that election every time. But if there's a primary, then you've got something to worry about. And you have to spend money and resources and time and effort in the primary that you normally wouldn't be spending. And that is what can cause people to be afraid of not representing their constituents in these votes and can get them to change their vote. But if you take that a step further to what we were talking about earlier, if you're Gen Z and you're looking up at this and say, the Democrats want to stop this, but they can't because it's structurally rigged against them, why should I bother? Why should I call my congressman if it's not going to make any difference in how they vote and they're not going to vote to make the change that I want? And, to us, that's the way you make the change. So it all ties together, needing a different approach to make it happen. Because, my question for Hickenlooper is, what is he doing to stop it? But that's a whole nother subject. But there's nothing that he can do to stop it, even if he wanted to at this point, because the votes simply aren't there. And the remedy for these things in the Constitution is impeachment. And we all know that has no chance because the system is structurally rigged now. So that's where Gen Z looks up and says, this isn't set up for me. This isn't made for me to succeed. And the barriers are so high that it doesn't matter what amount of work I put in, I'm never going to get there. And that's the difference between previous generations and this one. In my generation, you could work hard and succeed. And yes, technically there aren't laws preventing that, but the laws that have set our system up are now discriminating against a lot of working class people, a lot of young people, and a lot of minorities. And, they see that. So, that's, where I would go from. But certainly the idea of just because you live in a Republican district and may feel like you're the only Democrat in the state, first of all, isn't true. Let me promise you, there are others there, but also, means actually in some cases you have more power as a constituent of a Republican you want to change their vote than I would here in Colorado, where all my representatives are Democrats. There's something that you can do there to make a difference. And some of the things that we have done is protest in front of their home office. Your senator comes back, and if there's a line of people out in front of them, they think twice about what they're doing. And you're talking about boycotting the companies that are paying for it. I'm all in favor of that. At any time you can take down a company that is causing problems by their actions, I think that's a good event to be worth doing. And there are things that can be done in ways that you can put pressure on, and a lot of it sometimes involves doing things that people don't really want to do. And it's hard work. But that's what needs to be done if we want to get any of these Republicans to change their votes in the Senate. And I think it's going to be much harder to get people to change votes in the Senate than it will be in the House.
Someone just asked, what would it take for us to have a nationwide strike? General nationwide strike is going to take a lot of planning. As someone said, there are groups working on it, but some of them are quite disorganized. So that one, I think, is a ways off. But what Indivisible is doing with the 1 Million Rising trainings is training people to organize in their own communities and training them on non-cooperation strategies. So one of the ways that we can topple an authoritarian regime, a general strike, it can be part of it, but non-cooperation is a huge part. So we talked about pillars of support. Morgan, can you find that video? And these pillars of support are things like education, the military, other things that prop up an authoritarian. And what we can do is use our connections to people in those pillars of support and encourage them to refuse to cooperate. An example of that would be when thousands of federal workers decided to ignore Elon Musk's email demanding to know the 5 things they did last week. And eventually the directives came from the top saying, you don't have to answer this email. Even Kash Patel, whatever his friggin' name is, even he told the FBI employees that they didn't have to answer it. And that all started from the grassroots, from a bunch of federal employees who got the email and started organizing. They started messaging each other and started signal groups and said, you know what, we're not going to answer this. That's an example. Also, if you'll remember at Trump's grand birthday parade, you may have heard that the soldiers were marching out of step. And I have heard from several people that are or were in the military that, once you go through boot camp, that's something you can do in your sleep. And so it was most definitely on purpose. So that's another show of non-cooperation. But the 1 Million Rising training, the link I put in the chat, is indivisible moving on to the next step beyond the mass protests. The protests are very important because what they do is they grow the movement. They show people that it's something that exists and that it's okay to be a part of, and that there are millions of other people that think the way that they do. And by growing that movement, we grow our connections with people in the pillars of support. So we have more people whose family are in the military or whose family are teachers, people that can, do things that can interrupt the support for Trump. So definitely watch that video that Morgan put in the chat. That's a great one. And then certainly join the 1 Million Rising trainings. Again, the first one's going to be next Wednesday. So we will not have a meeting next Wednesday, but I encourage all of you to join me there.
And I want to follow that up and point out that whether you're talking about the protests or calling your legislators or getting people elected or mutual aid or whatever it is that you're interested in, we need all of the above. The protests will only get us so far. Mutual aid will only get us so far. Even a shadow government will only get us so far. To get to where we really need to go, we need a movement that does all of these things. And to do that isn't going to be one person and it isn't going to be one group. We need the groups that do what they do and do it well to go out and do what they do and do it well. We need the groups that are able to plan larger protests and be able to do that and come together and do that as a group. But all of these things need to happen at the same time. And I'm not going to rely on the Republicans or the Democrats to be the group that's going to come and save us. We're going to have to do it ourselves at this point, because what we had and what we thought worked before doesn't anymore. So, we need to think outside the box and we need to start doing new things and doing things in different ways. But most importantly, we need all of it. And we need people to be doing all of these things. And there's no wrong way to do this unless it's violent. And, in the meantime, we get a lot of questions from people who say, well, I'm disabled or I'm homebound or I'm not able to go to a protest. Well, there's a lot of things that you can still do. The first thing we did was teach people how to make a meme, and we made those into our stickers. You can do that from home. And then you can take that meme and plaster it all over social media the same way we want to plaster them all over the real world. And if you can help the communication to get out that there's a protest coming up, simply by putting it on your Facebook event, on your news story, that helps. So, the point here is there is enough work to do for everyone, and we need somebody doing all of it. It doesn't need to be one person doing everything. It doesn't need to be one group doing everything. But if we're going to have a much higher likelihood of success, if we can have enough mutual aid to facilitate a general strike. And if we can have a general strike to hit the oligarchs in the pocketbook, because even one day of no GDP in the US will get people's attention. But you need to get all of those people out to do it, which means they need to feel safe that they're not going to lose their job. They're not going to go hungry. They're not going to lose a paycheck. But then once you have the general strike, you need to have the protests to back it up, to let people know that this wasn't a one-time event and that other people are involved. And then you need, the mutual aid to help all of the people who are losing their Social Security and their Medicaid and their SNAP. And if you can get the people who are unhoused into places that are safe, then they will come and help if you help them. And that's true of anybody in the movement. If we go there and we participate in what they're doing, they will come and participate in what we're doing. And, that's the important part. It's all of the above. It's not just, why haven't we had a general strike yet? We haven't had a general strike yet because nobody's been able to put one together. And somebody needs to go and do that. And some of these things take time. And if you look at what the general strike US has been doing, they've been working at it since the election, and they're still way out. And from what I'm hearing from unions, they're also interested in it. And like we talked a little bit last time, there are some unions that can't go on strike for a general strike based on the contracts that they sign or based on laws that exist. So it's not as simple. So the people who know how to strike well may not even be able to participate. So those are the types of things that we need to overcome. And it's eating an elephant one bite at a time. And that's how we're doing it. And that's why we're here to teach all of you how to go out and do it where you are.
Thank you. That's exactly why we're here. I'm sorry I forgot that the letter M asked to hear more about the volunteer coordinator position. So we have, I think, about 30 people that filled out an application to become a volunteer. I also have a group of to become a Solidarity Warriors leader in different roles that I have not been able to find the time to get to between organizing protests, working full time, running a small business, running Solidarity Warriors, and going to school. Maybe I need to find a new hobby, but anyway. The volunteer coordinator will be, contacting those people, having a Zoom meeting with them, and figuring out the best way to plug them into our movement, figuring out ways that these people can help us expand what we're doing. So we have a database that Indivisible has given us access to where we can manage them. So it's getting them set up on the data side as well. And that's something I can do if someone wants to volunteer just to basically, I don't want to call it an interview, but to have a chat with each of these people and see what they are all about and the best way for them to get involved. So if that volunteer coordinator sounds like something you want to do, I am putting my email in the chat one more time. Any other comments before we wrap it up for the night? All right. Well, you guys are amazing. I always love spending time with you. I will miss you next week, but we will be back the following week with how to activate college students on campuses near you.